Today we're going to do a bit of sewing project. I found these pages. I don't remember what company this was. Might have been Maya Road, but they had these canvas parts and they were sewn together along one side with a piece of cardboard type paper. This is what it would have had at the back. And they were two pieces sewn together to create one page. So I separated all the pages out. I also found some other canvas page parts from some other thing. And I want to put them into some type of a book because I have this larger piece of canvas that I can use as the cover. So my plan is I've taken a portion of this large piece and cut it off at 1 inch wide and then cut it in half so that it is approximately the same height as these pages. And I'm going to take, instead of having the two pages sewn together like this, I'm going to open them up and sew this strip down the center so that I create an area that I can sew into the cover and create a book where this will be one signature essentially. So I'm going to go and get my sewing area set up and move the camera, and you can watch me do a few of those steps and I'll be back. Alright, so I've got the sewing machine up. If you hear some mowing in the background, that's my husband, so you'll have to persevere. So I did a test run of the pattern I'm going to use. Sorry it's so dark over here. We're on the other side of the room from the lights and it's hard to do anything about it. So we're going to use this pattern, and I'm using this tan kind of thread because I don't want it to be super obvious by like using black, but I want it to highlight a little bit when we do these. Now I'm not going to pin it or anything like that. We're just going to wing it and hopefully get what we need. I'm trying to overlap by about a little over 1/4 inch. Once the thread starts on the one end here, then it'll kind of help keep it in place. Now it doesn't matter that it's overhanging on this side. That's not that big of a deal. So this is extremely awkward with the angle of the camera and where I have my pedal. So we'll get through this, maybe. Need to adjust my pressure pedal. Alright, always start off slow. In fact, it's good to put the needle down into your work before you start. Hang on to your string sometimes. It needs to have a little assistance. So I'm going to do a little bit first, and then I'm going to go backwards just to kind of secure that end so it doesn't unravel. And then we'll go forward again. Make sure I'm getting this lined up the way I want. Now I've reached the other end. I'm going to go reverse again. Just kind of lock it in place. And this is what we've got. So we've got a little piece here sewn on. We've got our strengthening bit of extra sewing at each end to make sure it doesn't unravel while we have it in book form. And now we can do the other side. Now, lining it up on the opposite side here, I'm going to butt the new page up against the other page that I have here, like that. So hopefully you can see that well. Try not to leave a gap in between the pages. And on this time, I'm going to do it from this side so I can make sure I'm continuing to keep that page next to the other one rather than, well, no, actually I think I'm going to flip it over and make sure I don't run off the edge of this piece. think I'd rather have it match from this side as far as how far from the edge of the center panel the stitch ends up. So because I can always kind of peek under here and make sure it's still good. Always make sure to keep your fingers out of the way. You don't want to accidentally sew your fingernail. That really, I haven't done that, thankfully. Hope I never will, knock on wood. My mom's done it once and she said it's not pleasant at all. Alright, so there we go. We have the nice stitch down both sides there. I got a little crooked here, that's fine. No big deal. The stitch won't be the important part. It's going to be, you know, the book itself. And once I get all of these done, we're going to sew down the center here on this seam into the cover that I'm going to be making. And one of the things I think I'm going to add on the cover is I have this bit of canvas heart from Maya Road as well. And because it's a bit of a different shade, I think it'll look really neat on that cover. So I'm going to go through and finish doing my stack of pages I have here. And when that's completed, I will come back and then we can start on how we're doing the cover. Okay, so I have all of those pages sewn now. Here's most of them. And I used that size to measure out how much I would need for a cover. So I've given myself a little over ½ an inch, I think it's like 3/4 of an inch, to fold over on what will be the edge to provide extra protection. I've given it some width on both ends to fold over also, so I can do this and sew it and provide stability there. This is the center point. I've also gotten this piece here that's approximately the same height of the pages. And I'm going to include that here in the center area. So as I sew the pages in, it'll give it more stability there so they don't just, you know, accidentally rip out as you're doing them. So let's just put that to the side for a second. And place the pages in the book cover. And this part's a little awkward because, you know, since it's fabric, they don't want to line up well. So it'll be kind of like that. And I have it, I believe, where the pages won't quite reach all the way to the edge. So now I'm going to go through and sew the edges down on all 4 sides to make the cover border. And I'm going to probably, I don't think I'm going to sew this heart on the cover. I think what I will do is use some kind of fabric glue or something to add that on later. That way I still have the option of not using it. Plus, I've always had a problem sewing around rounded sides, and I don't want to make it all ugly. So I think I will just maybe glue it on, and then once it's stuck down, maybe I can come back through by hand and do maybe a cross stitch kind of edging. So I'm going to get working on this part, and then I will be back to show you how that turned out. Alright, so I have the cover sewn together. I did another line almost right over the top of the other one, and that way it was kind of a, I don't know, messy look to it rather than a perfect line. because it's too hard to do the same thing on one over the other. So I got those, and then I ran the stitch across the top and the bottom and with this piece in here so that it would get hooked in. And that's how that looks so far. I need to tie the ends together on these threads so that they don't unravel, and then I can put a little dab of something to adhere them. I don't remember who it was that does this, but they pick the threads back through. I think it's Helen Allen. So I'm going to try that, and that way I can tie them on the inside. So now the cover will be like that, but obviously fatter because of the pages. Something like that. So next step is to get each of those pages sewn in, and I have an even number, I believe. I can't even count. Holy cow. 3, 6, yeah, I have 12 double pages here. So I need to make sure I start not exactly on the center line, but to the side of it, because if I were to put on the center line, I need to have an odd amount of pages, so maybe about there. So if I position the page where I think it needs to go, and then open it up and make sure it's pretty much centered, then I can run a stitch down the center part there and hook it in. So I'm just going to give each one a bit of a finger crease so I can see that crease on the inside and know where to run the line. So we'll do one real quick so you can see. And like the zigzag stitch portion, I'm going to back up on the stitch to make sure it has reinforcement since we're in the page portion here. So you can see there, I've got one set of pages hooked in. Can't even really find where the stitch is on this side. And then that allows for flipping. So I'm going to continue on with this and get all the rest of the pages hooked in, and then we'll see what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so here we are up to this point. I've got all the signatures sewn in. Some of those were kind of complicated because as I got pages added in, it got so thick that the feed foot and the feed dogs didn't want to accept the layers. So I started skipping a gap and then coming back and putting one in the gap and then spreading it where the dogs or the feet went right over the top as even as possible, and then I just used my scissors to push the fabric down in the crack as the needle came across so it wouldn't leave a big gap, because obviously you don't want to get your finger in there and sew it. So the pages, as it's flat, give a stepped look on the side, of course, and then because each set of pages or each page is its own signature essentially. It gives a nice look. So this is where that sewn edge part comes in. And at one point I had decided that I liked it better with the, I think it was here, the nicer edge on the inside, instead of sewing down the part like here where I sewed down this part and still have these flappy bits. Whereas the next page over, I sewed down the nice part. Let's see. So those flappy bits are actually at the bottom, facing towards the spine. But those two that I did put in that are backwards compared to the rest, do let me know where the center of the book is, and that actually came in handy as I was having to constantly keep flipping it back and forth like this to try and keep the fat part even when I was doing the sewing. So I've got all these little stringy bits everywhere, which is fine. Here's how the cover turned out on the inside. I don't know if I showed that closely before. Did a little bit of trimming here to kind of reduce the bulk in the corners, and it turned out well. I need to come in and do some fray stop maybe, or something. Come back, take the needle and pick up this thread and sew it back through so I can knot it maybe. So that part turned out awesome. And then that piece of fabric I added in here, which you can see, that added with the sewing here, it gave it a nice little sturdy feel to it. And then of course there's the binding strings, and I don't necessarily care that those look that way. I think that's kind of fun, having them all fun and shaggy. I might tidy up some of these with some knotting, or I'll maybe come back across and get a piece of decorative fabric, because Lord knows I have tons of fabric. But I could definitely come back in with some fabric or something and not necessarily this, but you know, a piece that's appropriately sized, and cover that up. Maybe I could even stamp something on fabric and then apply it with some kind of really good glue for fabric. So my idea for using this book, I think right now, I haven't set for sure on that, is because there are 12 signatures and each signature amounts to 4 pages, because you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, that's one signature, and that could be 4 pages for January, 4 pages for February, etc. So I could choose in January, you know, what things happen in January. Well, let's skip to February because it's easier to remember. February has Valentine's Day, so one of my pages could be for Valentine's. There's, you know, wherever President's Day is. I'm horrible with remembering when all these things are, but you know, something to do with President's Day. I could find some kind of an image, maybe George Washington's birth home, and you know, figure out how to recreate it on the page somehow, or you know, an apple tree, because everyone talks about the apple tree when George Washington's mentioned, and work my way through. 4th of July we could have, you know, a fireworks page, and then we could have a flag page. Christmas we could have presents, a tree page. You know, the ideas are endless. So you know, I don't even do, I'm not Jewish, but even a page that had a Hanukkah theme, or the menorah or something, might be kind of nice, just to celebrate, you know, or not celebrate, but to document something that happened during that specific month. So that might be fun. I could also take one of the pages of the 4 and, you know, just do a different kind of font with, so like December, figure out a neat font to do that in, paint that up all kinds of fun, and then only dedicate 3 pages to things from December. So we shall see. And because each one of these signatures is its own separate thing, I don't have to wait till January to do this. I could start, you know, October if I want to, and start doing some fun Halloween stuff, and then say I want to do something in February, and I could flip back over here to February's section and work on February. So that shall be fun. So I hope you've enjoyed watching the creation of this book, and when I start doing some things in it, we will come back and visit that. I think also I mentioned adding this fabric or canvas heart on here. What might be really fun, since I have a huge amount of ribbons, maybe I could add some ribbons on the front, or even decorate the heart with the ribbons and trim them off, and then have a real fun funky ribbon heart, because I have a bunch of ribbons that are holiday themed, and I could use a few of those. Although that might be kind of clashy. We don't know. We'll see. Still haven't decided just yet on that cover, but you know, it doesn't need to be done right now. So thanks again for watching as I've created this book. Hope you became inspired on something you could do. And if you have any questions, please post them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer. As always, you can find my other social media links via my About section on my YouTube channel, and I think they're also in the corner of the banner at the top. Please like and subscribe and share, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!